I come with no other agenda than desperately trying to help people who are in need. And I see that as part of my role. And I like a big challenge. I do like that, but I can't do it on my own.
On a quiet Sunday morning, Prince William arrived at St. Mary's Church in Norfolk, looking for a peaceful moment away from the public eye. What started as a simple visit for reflection would soon lead to an encounter with a young girl whose words would touch his heart in ways he could never have imagined. On a beautiful Sunday morning, St. Mary's Church in Norfolk sat quietly under blue skies, its old stone walls covered with vines. Inside, the cool air carried a faint blend of apple wood, incense, and fresh lilies arranged near the altar, a small but thoughtful gesture from the parishioners. The congregation arrived one by one, their quiet greetings and soft footsteps mixing with the sound of coats being removed and hymnals being opened. The wooden pews creaked gently as people settled in. Sunlight poured in through the stained glass windows, scattering vibrant shades of red, blue, and green across the stone floor, giving the space a calm, uplifting glow. Among the worshippers was Prince William. He wasn't drawing attention to himself, but was impossible to miss. Why? Keep watching to find out. He was dressed in a navy suit that matched his regal demeanor. He carried an air of quiet dignity. His easy, friendly smile made him seem less like a royal and more like just another person looking for connection. He exchanged warm greetings with a few locals, his words simple and sincere. Then, with practiced ease, he chose a seat near the back of the church, finding that perfect balance of staying approachable yet private. This wasn't a public appearance. There were no cameras or reporters. Prince William had come here to step away from the constant demands of royal life and find some peace. For him, this church wasn't just an old building. It was a rare place where he could let go of the weight of his titles and responsibilities, even if only for a little while. But that morning, there was something in the air, something quiet but undeniable, like the church itself sensed something meaningful was about to happen. As the organist's soulful notes filled the church, the familiar hymn filling every corner of the church with the music, Prince William noticed something unexpected. Near the altar, in the middle of the tall, dark pews, sat a small figure. At first glance, she was easy to miss. She was tiny, her little frame almost lost in the vastness of the church. The soft light from the stained glass windows shone all over her, giving the moment an almost magical feel. The little girl, no older than 5, had a head full of curly brown hair that tumbled over her shoulders like a messy halo. She sat alone on the edge of the front pew, her feet swinging gently back and forth, too short to reach the floor. It was a sweet, innocent image of childhood, but something about it felt a little out of place. Little did he know that he was about to have an encounter that would change his life. At first, William thought she must be waiting for her parents. Surely they would arrive soon. But as the minutes passed, no one came. The little girl didn't seem worried at all. She sat calmly, surrounded by the crowd of adults lost in prayer and reflection. Her focus was on a worn picture book in her hands. She flipped through the pages slowly, her small fingers carefully tracing the edges as if it were something very special asterisk. Every so often, she looked up at the stained glass windows, her wide eyes following the patterns of light as they danced on the stone floor. There was a quiet wonder in the way she watched, as though she saw something magical in the shifting colors. What caught William's attention wasn't just that she was alone. It was how calm and confident she seemed. She sat so still, with a sense of belonging that seemed far beyond her years. She wasn't bothered by the large space or being alone. Instead, she looked completely at ease, as if she had her own quiet reason for being there. The longer William watched, the more curious he became. Why was she here alone? Was she lost? Or was there a deeper reason for her being here? These questions stuck in his mind, but he stayed in his seat, silent, simply observing. As the service ended and the congregation began to leave, the gentle shuffle of coats and low murmurs filled the air. Yet the little girl stayed where she was. Her focus hadn't shifted from the picture book in her hands. She seemed untouched by the movement around her, as if the outside world didn't exist. William didn't move either. He waited in his seat, his eyes on her. The emptying church made her stand out even more. With no sign of her parents and no one coming to her, the sight of her sitting there all alone was very unsettling for the prince. William stood from his seat and began walking toward the little girl. His steps were slow and quiet, each one soft against the cool stone floor. He moved carefully, not wanting to startle her. As he got closer, he bent down to her level, crouching so he wouldn't seem too tall or imposing. "Hello there," he said gently, his voice calm and kind. He gave her a warm smile, the kind that could make anyone feel safe, even a small child sitting alone in a big church. "What's your name?" The girl looked up slowly, her large hazel eyes meeting him. For a moment, there was surprise in her expression, as if she hadn't expected anyone to notice her. But just as quickly, her gaze softened, curiosity quite visible on her face. She didn't seem scared, just a little unsure of what to say. After a short pause, she spoke. Her voice was soft but steady, and for someone so small there was a calmness in her tone that seemed unusual. It was as if she was weighing her words carefully, even though she was just a child. William stayed crouched, keeping his smile steady and his tone gentle. He didn't want to rush her, letting her take her time. As the quiet moment stretched between them, he realized how peaceful and focused she seemed, her presence both intriguing and comforting. "I'm Rosie," she said softly, her voice small but firm, as though she were proud of her name. "Rosie," William repeated with a smile, a warmth in his voice. "That's a lovely name. Are you here with someone?" Rosie hesitated, her fingers curling tightly around the edges of her book. Her gaze shifted briefly to the empty pews around her, then back to William, her small face clouded with a hint of uncertainty. "No," she said slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "I came by myself." The prince was quite surprised by her response. Why would a child so young come to church alone? The answer will shock you. It was both remarkable and concerning. His thoughts raced for a moment as he processed what she had said. "Does your mummy or daddy know you're here?" he asked gently, his concern slipping into his voice despite his best efforts to remain composed. Rosie nodded slowly, her expression serious. "Mummy says I can talk to God anytime I want," she explained, her fingers still clutched tightly around her book. "Today I wanted to talk to him about Daddy." The simplicity of her words hit him like a wave. A 5-year-old girl coming to church alone to talk to God about her father. William's heart tightened in his chest as he searched for the right words. William's heart tightened as he heard Rosie's simple words. The innocence of a child, asking such heavy questions, was both heartbreaking and moving. He calmly sat down beside her, making sure his posture was open and relaxed, so she would feel at ease. He wanted to make her feel as though she wasn't alone, even in the vastness of the church. "Do you want to talk about your daddy?" he asked softly, his voice warm and kind, hoping she would feel comfortable enough to share. Rosie looked up at him, her eyes still wide with a mixture of curiosity and something deeper, something that seemed to come from a place beyond her years. She nodded, the movement causing her curls to bounce slightly around her face. "Daddy's a soldier," she began, her voice steady as though she had said this many times before. "He's very brave, but he's far away now. Mummy says he's in heaven." William felt a deep, familiar ache in his chest as Rosie's words settled in the air between them. The loss of a parent, especially one as significant as a father, was something that touched him in a way few could understand. He knew the weight of grief all too well, the heaviness that lingers long after the immediate pain has faded. His own loss of Princess Diana, his mother, had been the defining moment of his life. It had shaped his perspective, his values, and his path.
What has impressed you most about her?
I think just the qualities that are essential for somebody in a leadership role.
The sorrow he carried from that day, though softened by time, never fully left him. It was a constant presence, a shadow he couldn't shake no matter how much time had passed. It had become a part of him, a part of his identity. As he listened to Rosie, he saw something that mirrored his own experience, the struggle with a loss that no child should have to endure. But what struck him was the resilience in her voice, the quiet strength that she showed despite the sadness she carried. Here was a young girl, no older than 5, who had already experienced the unimaginable. She was facing the same kind of loss he had at her age. But unlike him, she wasn't overwhelmed by the weight of it. Instead, she approached her grief with bravery and a sense of calm that seemed beyond her years. She had found a way to navigate her sadness, seeking comfort in her own way, through prayer and faith. It was an extraordinary thing to witness, this tiny figure facing the world with such courage. William watched her for a long moment, his heart swelling with admiration. He couldn't help but think how much strength it took for someone so small to hold so much sadness, and yet remain so composed. "That's very brave of you, Rosie," he said, his voice steady, though he could feel a lump rising in his throat. "What did you want to talk to God about?" Rosie's gaze lowered to the pages of her book, her small fingers tracing the edges with a quiet concentration. Her next words were spoken so softly, he had to lean in slightly to hear. "I wanted to ask him if Daddy knows I miss him, and if he can still see me." The simplicity of Rosie's question struck William deeply, sending a ripple of emotion through him. He understood that feeling all too well, the quiet, almost desperate wonder of whether those we've lost can still be with us in some way. Can they see the little moments of our lives, the quiet victories and the sad days? He had spent years wondering if his mother was still watching over him, witnessing his joys and sorrows from somewhere far away. Just like Rosie, he had held on to the hope that somehow, even in her absence, his mother could still be part of his world. It was a thought that never had a clear answer, yet it was a question that everyone at some point carries in their heart. As Rosie's words hung in the air, William suddenly felt a deep pain in his chest again. For a moment, he was taken back to his childhood, thinking of the loneliness and confusion that came with his loss. He remembered the unanswered question that was in his mind, unspoken, but always there. In Rosie's eyes, he saw the same weakness, a quiet search for comfort, for connection, for a sign that the love of the lost is never truly lost. And her grief was soft and delicate, but it showed in the way she asked questions with such quiet intensity. It was an adventure. Few people dare to ask such deep and sincere questions. But here was this small, determined kid. She seeks peace in her own way, by reaching out to the Lord with courage that many adults cannot challenge. Her honesty and strength touched something deep within William, awakening memories and emotions that he thought had been buried for so long. Her maturity was striking, far beyond her years. William realized that loss didn't just shape adults, it shaped children too, in ways that often went unnoticed. Rosie, despite her young age, had already encountered a depth of sorrow that many would spend a lifetime learning to navigate. Yet, there was something remarkable about how she was facing it. She wasn't hiding from her grief. She was confronting it with a quiet courage that was, in many ways, even more powerful than the grief itself. William's heart swelled with empathy as he looked at her, his voice soft but steady as he responded. "Your daddy knows you miss him," he said gently, his words thick with emotion. "And I believe he can still see you, Rosie. He's always with you." even when you can't see him. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, he felt an unspoken connection between them, a bond that was formed by their shared experience of love and loss. "He's always in your heart," he added, his voice barely above a whisper, as if trying to hold on to the profound truth of his words. Reaching into his pocket, William felt around until his fingers brushed against the smooth edges of a small silver coin. It was a coin he always carried with him, a token of personal significance. The coin, though simple, held a deep meaning for him. Engraved on its surface was an image of St. George slaying the dragon, a symbol of bravery, protection, and courage. It was something he had carried for years, a reminder of his own responsibilities, his faith, and the challenges he faced as a member of the royal family. The coin was more than just a piece of metal. It was his good luck charm, a quiet companion in moments when he needed strength, especially in the face of adversity. He pulled the coin from his pocket, feeling the cool metal between his fingers, and looked at Rosie, his heart heavy with the connection they had just formed. He held it out to her, his hand steady but gentle. "This is for you," he said softly, his voice filled with a quiet sincerity that matched the moment. "It's a coin that reminds me to be brave. Maybe it can remind you too, that your daddy is always watching over you." Rosie's eyes widened. Her gaze fell on the coin as she hesitantly reached out a small hand. As her fingers curled around it, she gripped it carefully. It was as if she knew its weight, and despite her young age, she looked up to him. Her wide hazel eyes were soft with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but quiet, filled with respect. Before she fully understood its meaning, the signal seemed to begin to understand her. At that moment, something changed between them, something deeper than sound. A smile appeared on Rosie's face, which had been solemn and contemplative just moments before. It was now fading. A smile so pure and full of light that it seemed to illuminate the entire church. Her pain seemed to subside for a moment, and a new feeling of peace took over. A calm assurance that things will work out, will be correct, and okay. And the smile she gave him was something that could light up even the darkest corners of the world. "I think Dad would like that," she said softly, her voice filled with renewed confidence. Her eyes sparkled with a feeling of pure peace. There was no trace of doubt or sadness in her words, but she spoke with quiet confidence, with people who have just discovered a new source of comfort, a new way to connect with her father that she misses so much. William smiled back at her. A warm feeling grew in his chest. It was a moment he would never forget. Moments that reminded him of the power of small gestures and the strength of the human spirit. Their interactions did not go unnoticed. Several members of the meeting stopped to watch from afar. It was captured by the quiet but beautiful exchange between Prince William and Rosie. The warmth in the air seemed to increase as time went by. People of all ages, from the youngest children to the oldest, one cannot help but be impressed by the tenderness of this scene. There was something undeniably profound about the simplicity of the relationship they shared. It's not just a conversation. It was a moment of pure human compassion, bridging the gap between grieving children and men who know what it's like to bear loss. William sat beside Rosie for a while. She told him stories of her favorite memories, small, precious moments that only a daughter could cherish. How her dad used to take her to the park, pushing her high on the swings, and how he would sing silly songs to make her laugh, even when she was feeling down. Her words, though simple, were filled with love and nostalgia. She also told him how she tried to make her mum laugh when things felt sad, doing little things to bring joy in the midst of the pain. William listened with rapt attention, his heart heavy yet full. He couldn't help but admire the way Rosie had found a way to cope, to honor her father's memory by carrying forward the love and joy he had once given her. By the time they said their goodbyes, William felt deeply moved. The encounter had left an indelible mark on him, reminding him of the power of kindness, the healing nature of connection, and the importance of simply being present for others. As he left St. Mary's that day, he carried with him a renewed sense of purpose, reminded of the quiet strength found in moments of human compassion. Word of the encounter spread quickly through the small community, carried on the lips of locals who had witnessed the touching exchange. The story of how Prince William, in a moment of personal reflection, had taken the time to comfort a young girl grieving the loss of her father resonated deeply with everyone who heard it. It wasn't just the act of royalty reaching out. It was the profound humanity of it. People from all walks of life, from the older parishioners who had been at St. Mary's for decades to the young families who attended services regularly, shared the story with one another. Each person moved by the quiet kindness of the future king. For Rosie and her mother, the day became a pivotal moment. It was more than just an encounter with a member of the royal family. It was a moment of connection and comfort that would stay with them forever. It reminded them that even in the depths of their sorrow, they were not alone. The warmth of William's words and the gift of the silver coin brought them a sense of peace and reassurance that, even in the absence of a loved one, they could still feel supported and connected to something larger than themselves. The simple act of kindness showed them that they were part of a broader community, one that cared for them even in their most vulnerable moments. As for William, the memory of Rosie's bravery stayed with him long after he left St. Mary's that day. He carried her resilience with him, a poignant reminder of the strength that can be found even in the smallest among us. In a world often filled with uncertainty and pain, Rosie had shown him that there was always hope, always light, even in the face of loss. Her quiet courage was something he would carry with him, a source of inspiration whenever the weight of the world felt heavy. What do you think about Prince William's heartfelt gesture? Have you ever witnessed a moment where kindness changed someone's day? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more uplifting stories.